Hi peeps, welcome back to my channel. Good to see you again. I hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to be talking about intuitive writing again. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so now. Hit the bell so that you get notified when I have new videos out. And if you like this video, give it a pause up so that it helps my algorithms. Hi, yes, you're very beautiful. And we will get started here in just a moment. So I've tried to make this video several times. The first one I was interrupted. The second time I forgot to put it on record. And this time we'll see if it works. I'm talking about intuitive writing again today. And I'm going to give you 3 tips. And I'm hoping they will help you keep on track and not get derailed, because each one of them I have broken the rule that I set for myself and I have paid the price. And I'm hoping that by giving you these tips, it will help you avoid being derailed like I was. And the derailment, I will give you an example of why I got derailed each time and how easy it is to lose track of what you personally need to be doing. So, yes, I know you're there. You're very pretty. So the first tip is to trust your process. This can be difficult if you haven't written very much. It takes time to learn to trust your process. It takes time to figure out what your process is. But once you have found it, trust it. Follow it. Whether your process is that you are not an intuitive writer and you need to plot the books, go ahead. Or whether it's that you are an intuitive writer and you should not be trying to plot your books, again, follow through. Listen to yourself. Listen to what works for you. Remember what works for you and what has worked for you. And I will give you a little story about this. So, last year in 2019, during the autumn, I was starting to write a sacred magic. And I don't know what came over me. To be honest, I have no clue what happened, but something inside just went, maybe I should plot this book. I think I was hearing a lot of my fellow authors talk about plotting at that time. I've written, at this point, almost 75 books, around 75 books. I know my process. I knew my process last year. I don't know why I got so insecure in my own process, but I decided I was going to plot the book. I sat down. I spent a couple weeks plotting out the book, and it was difficult. I don't plot out books very well. They grow organically as I write. That's what being an intuitive writer is all about. So I get the book plotted finally, and I start writing, and it's like trudging through mud. It is like slogging through a bog. I mean, we're talking Frodo in the marshes of the dead, you know. It was so hard, and I was writing so slow compared to my normal speed. I am a prolific writer. My normal pace is to write fairly quickly. And I was just like having trouble putting the words on the page. And I would get stymied and I would get lost. And it was like, what the hell am I doing? And about 3 weeks in to my timetable, I realized it's the fact that I tried to plot the book. I'm following an outline. I feel like I'm in a straitjacket with this book. And it's not working. So I threw out the outline. And I erased every word I had written up to that point, and I started again with just my synopsis, and I wrote the book. No problem. I was enjoying writing the book again. It was fun. It was like, yes, I'm back in action. I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust my own process. And you know, this can be true for so many things in life. If there are things that you do and you do them well, and you have a way of actually accomplishing, you know, the task or the project that's a little different than somebody else, don't worry about the fact that it's different. You do you. Do it your way, because that is how you are geared toward it. I firmly believe that some of us are hardwired quite differently than others, and we need to trust our own process. We need to trust what we're doing. So trust your process. Trust that it has worked in the past. It will work this time. It will work in the future. And if at some point something shifts and changes, you will realize that and you will make the changes accordingly. Tip number 2, don't force your story. This goes into the video that I did about writer's block. I don't have writer's block. I very seldom am stymied. If I am, it's usually for a good reason, like trying to plot the book instead of not following my own pattern, my own path. But usually, if I do come to a point where the writing is not flowing the way it should, and where it's a struggle to put the words on the page, one thing I have learned is I stop, I go back to the last place where it was working, and I take a look at that. And usually I notice that I've tried to force the story from that point on, that I've had an idea in my head that I thought it should happen, and I tried to make it happen, and, you know, it just wasn't going to happen. It just wasn't working because it wasn't the way the story was supposed to go. I was interfering in the flow of the actual story that needed to be written. I am not one of these people, one of these writers, who believes that everybody can control their characters or that everybody should be totally in charge of what they're doing. And by that, I don't mean that you aren't the one writing the story. What I mean is that your subconscious sometimes knows better than your conscious mind. My conscious mind doesn't always. It works on a superficial level. My subconscious works on a gut level. When I write from the gut, the story usually flows and it runs along smoothly. If I get stuck, it means I am writing from my conscious mind, you know, a superficial level, rather than the core of the story. So don't try to force the story. If you get stuck, go back, see if maybe you tried to twist it and turn it in a direction that it wasn't meant to go. And sometimes that means letting go of a pet idea. It means letting go of the vision you had on a conscious level and accepting the reality of the story as it needs to be. Now, tip number 3, don't switch gears in midstream. Now, I switched gears with the Blood Queen series. That's why it's on hiatus. I had a vision for that series. And that vision included a plague of a different nature, but still a plague. And when I realized it was time to write the books, by then we were in the pandemic. And I realized I didn't want to write about a plague. A lot of readers are not really wanting to read about plagues, and I totally get it because I don't want to read about it. You know, it's reality enough without having it in my fiction. So I did something that I shouldn't have. I tried to change the nature of the story. Instead of putting it on hiatus immediately when I realized I can't write it the way I want to write it, I, once again, consciously went through and tried to make it into a different storyline than it actually is meant to be. And I wrote 30,000 words on that new storyline, and it was writing quickly. But all of a sudden I realized it felt very superficial, and it felt very distanced from me. I was writing it from a conscious point of view rather than, again, from my gut. And while it probably would have worked the way I had decided to change it, it didn't feel authentic to me. I felt very distanced. I felt very unattached to it. And if I'm feeling unattached to my writing, that means my readers are going to feel unattached. And I guarantee you, if I had released it, having written it in the direction that I decided to change it, it would not have done well because they would have felt my lack of investment in the books. I need to be invested in the books. I need to not switch gears when I'm going through. It would be like me taking the Wild Hunt series, which my readers love, and shifting it into from urban fantasy to total paranormal romance. While paranormal romance is good, and I have some of it in the Wild Hunt series, it's not a paranormal romance series. It's an urban fantasy series with romance. And by shifting the focus, if I shifted gears, I guarantee you it would not be the same series. And I would be interfering with my process. I guess what I'm talking about today with all three of these tips is don't derail yourself. Excuse me. Don't derail yourself in the middle of your work, or, when you're planning out what you want to write. Say you have a book you want to write and you've wanted to write it for a while, but when you start it, it doesn't feel right. It's not the right time. Don't keep going on it. Go do something else, because your subconscious will know when it's time. Now, people are going to ask, how do you know the difference between being afraid of putting pen to page and actually knowing when it's not the right time to write a book? Well, that again comes somewhat with experience, but if you think about the book, if you sit there and just calm your mind and you feel this gut reaction of, I'm afraid to do that, then it might be fear talking. And it may be fear of success. It could be fear of failure. It could be fear because the subject matter might be nerve-wracking, or it might be dredging up old memories, or it might be personal triggers. Those you can work with. I have written books that have dealt with personal triggers before, and while I was nervous writing them, I didn't let it derail me. I wrote through the fear. That is very different than writing through that gut feeling of it's just not the right time to write this book. The fear can be conquered. You can work through fear. If you try to work through mistiming something or not trusting your process and doing it a different way, chances are you're not going to succeed with that book. And by succeed, I am talking feeling like it is the best book that you could write at that moment, feeling like it's the book it needed to be. There are very many definitions of success. One is, financial. And for me, that's a big count. Financial success is important to me. There's also reader success, having your readers love the books. That's important to me too. The biggest success for me is knowing I have written a book that I'm proud of, that I am happy with, that feels like it's my book. This is my book. Nobody else could have written it the way I do. I will not put out a book that I am not happy with. Now, with traditional publishing, there was a bit of difference there. I've talked before about how they made me change the Fly By Night, the first book in the Fly By Night series, so that the relationship between Alex and Shimmer started at the beginning of the book instead of at the end. And I was not happy with that. And it made the entire series feels stilted to me, which is why I will never write another fly-by-night book. I would have to go back and totally write from scratch, from the beginning, to make it work. And the readers who already love the books the way they are would feel cheated, and I would feel uncomfortable writing another book in the direction that I've already taken the series. So, it's like, that was a series that I didn't have that much control over. It's very difficult when you are asked to change something that feels intrinsically wrong to change. And that is one of my joys in indie publishing. It's one of my great joys is that I can write the books the way I feel they need to be written, the way that feels right to me. And I can feel like, yes, this is my book. This is a Yasmine book. So if you are an intuitive writer, try those 3 tips. 1, trust your process. 2, don't force the story. And 3, don't switch gears in the middle. If it's not broken, don't try to fix it. So I hope these tips will help you, and I will talk to you next week, and probably in the middle of the week too, with a different type of video. So yeah, I hope that the holiday season is going well for you. I hope you are staying safe. I hope you are enjoying whatever you can enjoy. And remember, even if we can't be with loved ones at this time, or we can't be with our friends, we can still celebrate. We can celebrate through Zoom. We can celebrate through Skype. We can celebrate on the phone. We can talk to each other, in that manner. We can mail our gifts instead of, dropping them off or sitting around. We can open them on Zoom together. Be careful. Be safe. I want you to be safe. And you can't enjoy the future unless you're there to see it. Not to end on a down note. So let's just say, happy holidays. I will see you next week. Enjoy this season. Do what you can to have fun. Do what you can to make others happy, and bright blessings, and be well. Bye-bye.